I thought I was going to self-moderate, so I was just going to like make up stuff. Like I got a PhD in lasers or something. So this will be kind of open source-y for those of you. How many people here in 911? Got quite a few, hopefully. This won't be too terrible, and there's a lot of story. I was trying to decide how many slides to do. Like I got 20 minutes, usually it's 20 slides. I did like 15 slides. I'm gonna be talking more. You may hear people go like that guy over there. I was gonna do the Simpsons. Oh, do you want me to do slideshow? Does that bother you that I'm not doing slideshow?
Yes, it bothers me much.
Oh man. And that's your grass people right there. That's that's how your grass developers do it. I was going to leave it like that. I'd rather be canoeing. I was going to do the Simpsons thing. Hi, I'm Troy McClure. You may know me from such talks as I'm going to map a cemetery and other things. How many people saw the cemetery talk last year? Oh man, I got stories about that one. None of them ended with me mapping it. Is the lady here from Charleston that told me this was a completely fruitless endeavor and there would be nothing but pain and tears? She was right. I was out there overlooking the parking lot, going, no, this will be easy. No, it was terrible. It was oh God, it was awful. Hey, if you guys want to, come to FOSS4G, North America, free and open source software for GIS, geoinformatics, whatever it is. North America, we'll be in Reston, Virginia. Not my choice. I wanted to go to Nashville, but it'll be November 3rd through the 5th, so it'll be a fun time. You get to meet a lot of other open source geospatial people, and although you may be a full Esri shop, you'll find fun stuff to learn being there. So many moons ago, 10 years, I'm not an addressing whiz by any stretch of the imagination. I love data. I love patterns. I found myself in the Caribbean helping on an addressing project. And I went, how hard can this be? Addressing, everybody knows their addresses, right? I mean, everybody knows where they live. And the island we were on, streets weren't named. People didn't have numbers. It was just like go down to the mango tree, hang a right. You couldn't call for an ambulance. Like you just had to drag your dead out to the street and hope somebody finds you. And then I started, it was interesting to me, kind of learning the background of how addresses happen. And we started laying a thing out. And I came back, I was here, I guess 3 or 4 years later, and I was approached by a county in Tennessee. So I'm from Tennessee. I don't know what North Carolina does for 911. I was going to look it up, didn't get to it. Tennessee has a pretty laid out database. It's very NENA-like, but not an exact replica of what, the current, 3.0 or whatever the NENA standard is coming out currently, or whatever version. They got a GitHub repository, and I was looking at that. And so I was talking to this one county, and they had an ArcView Basic, ArcMap Basic, whatever they were calling it at the time, basically ArcView, maybe ArcEditor, I don't even remember. It was basically SneakerNet. They would put everything on a USB drive and pass it around. They wanted to upgrade the Esri server, whatever it was called at that point. This is like 2018. And the amount of money they were going to have to spend was going to be a chunk. They were looking at $25,000, $30,000 to get multiple licenses, server, new box. They didn't have a computer that would run it. They wanted to host everything internally. And they're like, can we do this with open source? I'm like, yeah, why not? We can make it work. And it got to be kind of interesting as I was asking them, how are you guys doing your addressing? And in this county's case, they would drive from the intersection. They had a little ticker thing in the car. That would give them, the address when they got to the house. Talked to another county. They just eyeball it because nothing they've done has ever held to that 5.28 foot standards. They just, 220s here, 240s here, 215 or 216 or whatever it needs to be. Nobody does anything really. They're consistently inconsistent with how they do things in Tennessee, but the database isn't. You got to do the database a certain way, and it's really, really nice. And so at the end of the day, for Henry County, their 911 system, we set up a box, I set up a box using PostGIS, this really great database. If you've never used it, you should give it a shot. It's a little bit confusing, but it's fun. QGIS on their desktop, so QGIS will connect to Post. It's very SDE-like for those of us that knew what SDE was. You can have multiple editors, you can do all the stuff. And from there, they're using Fulcrum. We're almost done using Fulcrum to go out and collect data. And they would, it started out they were collecting, like, part of their thing was fire hydrants, and then suddenly they're collecting addresses, and then they're collecting driveways, and they're doing different things. They stuck that in the QGIS, shove it in PostGIS. Every night at 2 a.m., we would export one batch of data to an online map, one batch of data to the state of Tennessee. It took us about a month to get that figured out. Like, what would the state accept? What would happen? At the end of the day, though, we had a fully functioning open source system just pushing data out. Now, a lot of the addressing still resided with the employees, so they had to make sure left and right numbers were even odd, everything worked. So, what happened over the course of those next few years? Well, you set up one database, and I figured this may be a one-off. This may be it. Never going to do another one. And then another county pops up, and they're kind of faced with the same problem of, buying ARC server, getting all this stuff. We really don't want to spend the money. We don't have the infrastructure. And so I started playing. I'm like, okay, let's think about this. So I started playing with the scripts, and it's a publicly available PDF that they have in the state of Tennessee. Why not go ahead and publish the scripts? So I got 3 scripts. One script builds all the tables. One script builds all the layers. The third script sets up all the triggers. And so it kind of standardized everything. There was no more taking. What I learned was the file geodatabase that they were using, that all these counties use, have been slightly altered. Maybe something wasn't a 12-character text field. Maybe it was 14. Maybe this was something else. Well, it's all standardized now. Once I run these scripts, it's all set up the same. Life is good. Triggers would record things like who was doing the edits, XY location in lat long, Tennessee State Plain, whatever it needed to be. QGIS will do drop-down menus, very much like domains, subtypes. You can fill all that stuff out. So I built tables. QGIS would suck the tables in, and then suddenly you've got everything that you need to make that work. And then I started building quality assurance mechanisms. Like, does everything that reside in the ESN actually have that ESN number? What about, are all your roads connected? Surprisingly not. Does everything intersect the way it needs to intersect? And so the database will kind of give you this ability to start working through it. Now, I haven't published all that stuff yet, but I'm getting there. Let's see if this works. So menus. You can go in and set stuff for active. We've got numbers 730, left, right. I would want left, right to be more automated, but QGIS, this little open source piece of software, you can do complete, and what's really nice with this one, it's a relation. So I can tell somebody pick historical, and it gives you a list of what all falls within historical. Maybe you need to pick a family style. It'll tell you that too. And also when you put a point down, it will pull the nearest street or the nearest streets within a mile. I want it to get to the point where you can actually just pick the street and grab all the attributes to cut out all the, any possibility of misspellings or other stuff like that. I mean, it's still a little bit primitive, but it's working. It's working now for 2 counties. We're kicking along. Okay, there we go. And one thing you learn with open source software, people love a hideous map. It doesn't have to look bad. You can actually make it look pretty. There's some joy in having your map look good. And so, you work with the client, you can double line the roads, you can put labels, you zoom out, the street addresses disappear, you zoom in, the street addresses come back. Just making your life a little bit simpler, a little bit nicer. The state of Tennessee provides like 10 or 12 data sets to the counties. So we try to leverage as much of that as we can. one of the funny things that ends up happening with 911 in Tennessee, you're only, when we started out, you were held to 3 layers that you had to have: addresses, center lines, and ESN, emergency service network, I think. That's how much I'm into this. I'm sitting there going, what does that mean? Now it's 6 layers. But now that you have a central repository, suddenly it's growing to 20 layers. They're putting fire hydrants in, they're putting fire stations in, they're putting all this extra information that's been scattered on USB drives and around the network, and they'll be cleaning off an old computer and going, oh, we had all the ponds on this one. Well, let's put them in the database. Let's get all this stuff in there that we can get. And then at one point, we were delivering GeoPackage. So GeoPackage is the open source's version of like an Esri file geodatabase. It's a little bit nicer. You can pack a lot of stuff into it: raster, vector, your QGIS files, your styles, everything goes in. We were delivering that every night to the state. The state started whining, and they sort of had a right to. I mean, they kind of let me get this far without screaming. Esri always has problems a little bit with GeoPackage, and this last version, their last update, whatever happened, they couldn't ingest the GeoPackage anymore, and so they asked me, can we do an Esri file geodatabase? Well, you can with QGIS. You can export that format out, no problem, no harm, no foul. So they gave me an empty one that had just exactly what they wanted in it. I dump every night into this empty file geodatabase, an existing, and sends it to them, and they're happy. And I'm happy, everybody's happy. Now that's part of the delivery mechanism. So we set up Microsoft Scheduler. It runs every night. This has been the one thing in 6 years that hasn't changed, really. Well, one of several things, but mainly that's never changed. We're just still continuing to pump out the same script. A script I wrote 6 years ago, still kicking along in 2025. It's nice. Added benefits, the software just doesn't display. You can do drive time analysis. So they handed me their fire stations and their roads. Of course, I had the roads, I didn't have the fire stations. Hey, where's everything in a 2 and 5 mile drive time or distance? And what you found was the nicest place in Henry County was like 10 minutes out. They had to add another volunteer fire department or add another fire department in the mix. So the tools are already there. You get like 500 some odd tools with QGIS, processing tools. One of them is, network analysis. So you can build this stuff out, and it gives them the ability. I don't have to do it. I can show them, write them directions, they're off and running. And it's pretty nice. And another added benefit, LiDAR. How many of you guys get LiDAR and it just sits? Like, hopefully that's not the case anymore. It used to in Tennessee, because Tennessee would fly 1/4 of the state every year. Every 4 years you'd get a complete coverage. Some counties can't afford whatever extension it is to ArcPro or whatever you're doing. I haven't used ArcPro since like 2021. Well, with QGIS, you can do 3D, visualization. And they've got this really great profile tool. So if you're curious about how tall a building is, you can just draw a line across those two, and then you can tell how tall a building is. Henry County was getting into the drone program, and fortunately, I don't think they knew how tall one of the buildings were. I'll leave it up to you to figure out what happened. At least that was the story I heard. I don't know if it was entirely true, but again, once you show them how to do it, they've got this tool at their disposal. OpenStreetMap. How many of you guys do OpenStreetMap stuff? I know a few do. It's kind of important now. This is sucked in by Facebook, by Amazon, by TomTom, by Garmin. I think probably even Google watches it a little bit to see when stuff shows up. So you find if you go in and kind of straighten up the roads, I don't do an import, I don't try to overwrite what's already there. I just try to make it line up and make sure it's named correctly. And then over the course of a few months, it starts making it out. You start noticing that Facebook has I think they call it daylight theme or something like that, where this stuff will start showing up. And I may or may not be sneaking buildings into the mix. Is this important for 911? I could argue yes and no. I'm arguing more yes right now. I found the other day that somebody was putting in hunting stands out in one of the parks. And so now the 911 has where all the hunting stands are. Somebody has labeled them, GPSed them, and put them all out there. Why not leverage that, pull it down in QGIS and use it? So what's next? This thing works. People are making addresses. The dreaded documentation. I got to start writing all this down. I was up here babbling earlier about this small health scare I had in January, and I realized then, man, I need to write everything down. So we'll be doing a lot of documentation in the next few months. Provide a cloud installation. Oh my God, if I walk into another government office where they've got a Dell computer that they bought 12 years ago, sitting in the corner, going, yeah, it works great, but we don't believe in backups. No, I don't want to do that anymore. Life is too short. A lot of these places are scared of the cloud. They don't want to use DigitalOcean, Linode, whatever, Amazon, whatever it is, but they're not running a safe setup. We had tornado alerts like crazy a week ago, Saturday. Two of the clients now don't even have backups. They don't have offsite backups. So they could have been hit, that would have been it. So I tend to log into their machines if I know bad weather's coming and just grab a copy and then beg them the next time I see them, please, please, for the love of all that's holy, get some backups going. Publish the QA/QC scripts. I want to write a plugin, which means I'm probably going to have to hire somebody to do this. I would like for left and right to be automatically done. I would like to, your put addresses in every 5.28 feet. I've got a processing tool that will do that now, but it needs to pull more information from the street center line. But I'm getting there. I'm getting closer. And then donate some money back. This open source software is free to download, but it's not free to produce. QGIS runs off a 350,000 euro a year budget, which is about $370,000 or depending on what the conversion rate is. That's not even $500,000 that they're using, paying for website, paying for developers, paying for documentation, producing this software that gives you 500 plus tools, plus all this editing ability. I can give them a little bit of money for doing that. So, questions, angst, anger, fear? Anybody? Yep.
Have you thought about using something like OSM to PG SQL? So like you can have bring in OpenStreetMap layers, or like you've got wireframes.
Actually, I haven't thought about that, but I could. We could run it. One group's running a Windows system, one group's running a Linux system. I like the Linux thing a little bit easier, but we could do it either way with PGSQL and pull it in. Yep, somebody, yeah.
So with the S3 Geo database, you can do versions, but with PostGIS, can you do vector?
Yes and no. There are plugins to do versioning out there. I would almost argue, and don't burn me for being a heretic, versioning was a great idea earlier on. I don't know if it's still a great idea. I mean, a lot of people still do it, but do you need multiple copies of your database sitting around? I am more of the belief if you outline an area and give people, do this, do that, don't interfere, like know where your neighbor's working at and just do it. But there are plugins to do versioning in QGIS. I don't know exactly how they work. I've got to learn that next week actually, because I've got a client wanting to do some stuff offline, taking the data out with them, where I've told them to stop doing that because one guy wants to take 3 million points out and one person wants to take everything in the county out with them. I don't think that's entirely necessary, but they may end up having to take a laptop back out with them, where they take a version of the data and then merge it back in. And I think it's, Doug, that's CART?
CART, K-A-R-T.
Yeah.
.org. That allows you to do Git style
Yeah.
versioning, merging, rollbacks. In fact, the developers actually work with the Git software to provide geospatial
Yeah.
extensions to Git.
So there's a mobile component to QGIS also. There's QField and Merged I'm more familiar with, and it uses a Git style versioning system where you keep multiple versions of your data while you're out editing. So in case something happens, they can look back and see what I did. You can pull in that version data into the database. So yeah, there's starting to be more and more versioning. It kind of, kind of worries me, but it can happen. It may happen at some point, who knows. But when you say versioning to the PostGIS crowd, you get a collective groan from the back of the room. Hear everybody go, ugh. Anybody else? We're good? Yep.
The scripting stuff?
Yeah.
Is it standard like JavaScript stuff, or is it on proprietary scripting language?
No, it's I was using GDAL or Goodle software. So if you look, QGIS uses that as a base. ArcPro uses that as a base piece of software. So you can open a terminal up once you have QGIS installed and run commands. And so the commands I run, OGR to OGR, basically I'm telling it to go out, grab the table, pull it down as a shapefile or geodatabase or something like that. So, but once these tools are built, they're usually really stable because nobody on this side of the fence wants to break stuff because that causes pain and agony. There's nothing worse than doing an upgrade to your software and then suddenly things don't work right again. How many of us have had that happen? And I will say it's been really nice having the scripting stuff just run for 6 years in a row without going down until my client accidentally uninstalled the Google software on his computer and then it quit working. So then I hid the install so he can't do that anymore. But is that it? Is that all? We're good? Woo! Thank you. I did pretty good.